The 1981 Canadian 1-cent coin, featuring Queen Elizabeth II, holds a unique place in the numismatic history of Canada, serving not only as a utilitarian piece of currency, but also as a representation of national identity, historical continuity, and the artistic evolution of coinage in the country. Minted during a time when Canada was undergoing significant social and economic transformation, the 1981 penny is made of 98% copper, with the remaining 2% composed of zinc and tin, giving it a weight of 2.8 grams and a diameter of 19.05 millimeters. It retains the traditional circular shape and a plain edge, common to most Canadian cents of the era. On the obverse of the coin is a right-facing effigy of Queen Elizabeth II, designed by British sculptor Arnold Machin, whose portrait was first introduced on Canadian coinage in 1965 and remained in use until 1989. This depiction of the Queen is youthful and elegant, without a crown, reflecting a modern and less formal approach to royal imagery, and includes the inscription Elizabeth II DG Regina, an abbreviated Latin phrase meaning Elizabeth II, by the grace of God, Queen. The reverse of the coin displays the iconic maple leaf twig, a symbol deeply embedded in Canada's national identity, designed by G. Kruger Gray. The two conjoined maple leaves on a single twig were first introduced in 1937 and remained a staple on Canadian pennies until the denomination was discontinued in 2012. The inscription on the reverse reads 1 cent Canada 1981, clearly identifying the face value, issuing country, and year of mintage. In 1981, the Royal Canadian Mint, RCM, produced these coins in both Ottawa and Winnipeg, with most being struck at the Winnipeg facility. However, it's important to note that circulation strikes from Winnipeg carry no mint mark, while collector-proof coins struck in Ottawa were struck using a higher quality finish, known as proof-like sets. Approximately 1.2 billion 1-cent coins were minted that year, making it one of the higher mintage years in Canadian penny history, reflecting both the coin's widespread use and the demands of an expanding national economy. The high mintage also means that most 1981 pennies in circulated condition hold only minimal numismatic value, generally just a few cents above face value, depending on their condition. However, uncirculated or proof-like examples, especially those with strong strikes, lustrous red surfaces, or full original mint luster, can attract more serious interest from collectors, particularly if they're certified by third-party grading services like ICCS or PCGS. Beyond its physical and economic attributes, the 1981 penny is also a tangible reminder of the period during which it was minted. The early 1980s in Canada were marked by political shifts, economic challenges like inflation and unemployment, and ongoing discussions surrounding national identity, bilingualism, and the patriation of the Constitution, which would culminate in the 1982 Constitution Act. Coins like the 1981 cent serve as silent witnesses to these historic moments, circulating in the hands of millions of Canadians and being carried in pockets, purses, and piggy banks across the country. They also highlight the changing role of the penny in Canadian life, which began to decline as production costs started to exceed the coin's face value, eventually leading to the denomination's official retirement in 2012. Thus, the 1981 Canadian 1-cent coin not only reflects the artistic and metallurgical standards of its time, but also encapsulates the evolving relationship between Canadians and their currency. Numismatically, the coin continues to attract collectors who specialize in small cent collections, particularly those pursuing date runs or looking for high-grade examples for typesets. Its relatively common nature does not diminish its historical or cultural value. Moreover, some collectors seek out minor varieties and errors from this year, such as die cracks, off-center strikes, or double dies, which can command premium prices depending on their rarity and clarity. In essence, the 1981 Canadian penny, while modest in face value, holds enduring significance in the broader narrative of Canadian coinage. It embodies the legacy of Queen Elizabeth II's long reign, the craftsmanship of mid-20th century coin designers, and the everyday life of a nation in transition. Despite being largely overlooked today, Especially since pennies are no longer in circulation in Canada, coins like the 1981 cent remain cherished by those who appreciate the artistry, history, and subtle storytelling power of numismatics. Next top. The 1987 Canadian 1 cent coin, featuring Queen Elizabeth II, stands as a modest yet significant artifact in Canadian numismatic history. Although it may appear ordinary at first glance, this penny encapsulates layers of historical, economic, artistic, and cultural value. To fully appreciate the 1987 Canadian cent, one must look at its design elements, historical context, material composition, production figures, and its place in both the timeline of Canadian coinage and the reign of Queen Elizabeth II. On the obverse front side of the 1987 Canadian 1 cent coin is the right-facing portrait of Queen Elizabeth II, Canada's constitutional monarch. This image is the second effigy of Queen Elizabeth II used on Canadian coins, designed by Arnold Machin, a British sculptor. Introduced in 1965, this portrait depicts the Queen wearing a tiara, specifically the girls of Great Britain and Ireland tiara, and reflects a more youthful and serene version of the monarch. This design was utilized until 1989, giving way to a newer effigy reflecting the Queen in middle age. Along the outer rim of the coin is the legend, Elizabeth II Dei Regina, Latin for Elizabeth II, by the grace of God, Queen. This inscription reinforces Canada's identity as a constitutional monarchy within the British Commonwealth and serves as a reminder of its colonial ties and continuing allegiance to the Crown. By 1987, Queen Elizabeth II had been on the throne for 35 years. Her image had become a symbol of continuity for Canada, which, though increasingly asserting its independence and identity, particularly after the patriation of the Constitution in 1982, still regarded the monarchy as a vital part of its heritage. Thus, her effigy on coins serves both as a mark of sovereignty and tradition. The reverse back side of the coin features one of Canada's most beloved and iconic symbols, the maple leaf. Designed by G. Kruger Gray in 1937, this motif features two maple leaves on a single twig, a clean and elegant representation of Canadian identity, strength, and natural beauty. Above the design is the denomination 1 cent, and below it, the country name Canada and the date 1987 are clearly inscribed. Beneath the twig, the initials KG appear, marking the designer's contribution to the coin's enduring legacy. The maple leaf had long been a national symbol by 1987, appearing on everything from military insignia to the national flag, adopted in 1965. The coin's design, though simple, evokes a deep sense of national pride and environmental reverence, capturing the natural essence of Canada in a compact, utilitarian form. The 1987 1 cent coin was part of a transition period in Canadian minting. From 1982 to 1996, most Canadian pennies were made of 98% copper, 0.5% tin, and 1.5% zinc. This gave the coin a distinctive reddish-brown appearance, with a metallic weight and feel that later coins, especially post-1997 steel-based cents, would lack. These bronze cents were durable and possessed a resonance with collectors for their classic composition. Diameter: 19.05 millimeters. Thickness: 1.55 millimeters. Weight: 2.5 grams. Edge: plain, smooth. Shape: round. These dimensions place the 1987 cent within the typical North American small coin range, though its smooth edge and warm tone made it distinct in look and feel. The use of bronze gave it a metallic resonance and heft that was slowly being phased out in other countries due to the rising cost of copper. Mintage and circulation. The Royal Canadian Mint, headquartered in Winnipeg and Ottawa, was responsible for producing the 1987 1 cent coins. That year saw an exceptionally large mintage, with over 774 million pieces struck, exactly 774,549,000 coins. This was indicative of the cent's widespread use at the time. Despite Canada's increasing shift toward digital and card-based transactions, in 1987, pennies still played a critical role in everyday commerce, from vending machines to tax calculations. The high mintage also reflects the economic conditions of the time. Inflation, population growth, and economic expansion required more small denomination coins to remain in circulation. This abundance makes the 1987 penny extremely common in circulated condition today. However, uncirculated specimens, proof like strikes, or coins with min errors such as off-center strikes, die cracks, or double dies, can carry a premium among collectors. Historical and economic context. In 1987, Canada was undergoing notable political and economic shifts. Under Prime Minister Brian Mulroney, the country was transitioning towards stronger economic ties with the United States, laying the groundwork for the Canada-United States Free Trade Agreement signed in 1988. At the same time, Canada was navigating complex questions of national identity, especially in Quebec, where language and sovereignty debates were prominent. The 1-cent coin of this year, though small in face value, was symbolic of daily economic life. From buying candy to rounding off totals in cash transactions, the penny remained indispensable. Yet, there were growing conversations about the cost of producing such a low-denomination coin, a debate that would culminate decades later with the elimination of the penny in 2013. Collectability and legacy. Today, the 1987 Canadian cent is not rare, but it holds enduring value for historians, collectors, and educators. Its affordability makes it a common entry point for beginner numismatists. In circulated condition, it usually holds only face value, but high-grade examples in mint state, MS, 65 or above, or sealed in mint sets can be worth more, typically a few cents to a few dollars depending on condition and market interest. Numismatically, it belongs to the Elizabeth II, second portrait, Mackin effigy, series, and is part of a long line of Canadian bronze pennies that began in 1920. The coin also serves as a marker of Canadian coin design stability. The maple leaves reverse remained unchanged from 1937 until the end of the penny's life in 2012. The 1987 Canadian 1-cent coin, though seemingly humble in monetary worth, is rich in symbolism and heritage. It reflects Canada's enduring constitutional monarchy, national pride, and love for its natural environment. Crafted from traditional bronze and struck in high numbers, it is a reminder of a time when the penny was still king in day-to-day Canadian commerce. Its depiction of a young Queen Elizabeth II and timeless maple leaf design captures both historical continuity and the essence of Canadian identity. Even decades after its release, it remains a small but meaningful artifact, embodying the intersection of currency, culture, and history in Canada's evolving story. Next top. The 2001 Canadian 1-cent coin, bearing the image of Queen Elizabeth II, is part of the final chapter in the long and storied history of Canada's iconic penny, an unassuming yet culturally and economically significant coin that had been a fixture of Canadian pockets since Confederation in 1867. Minted by the Royal Canadian Mint, RCM, the 2001 issue of the 1-cent coin represents a continuation of a design that had been largely standardized since 1937, with minor variations over the decades. At the dawn of the 21st century, Canada was in a period of both technological modernization and economic stability, and the penny, though of dwindling practical use, still held symbolic and historical value. Composed primarily of copper-plated zinc, due to changes implemented in 2000 to cut minting costs, the 2001 1-cent coin weighs approximately 2.25 grams, with a diameter of 19.05 millimeters and a thickness of about 1.45 millimeters. The composition for the 2001 circulation coins consists of 98.4% zinc, 1.6% copper plating, and is magnetic due to the zinc core. This change marked a departure from the earlier solid bronze or copper-plated steel issues. On the obverse of the 2001 penny is the familiar effigy of Queen Elizabeth II, designed by Canadian artist Dora de Pedery-Hunt. This portrait, introduced in 1990, depicts the Queen wearing the George IV state diadem, facing right, with mature, dignified features reflecting her appearance at the time. Surrounding the effigy is the Latin inscription, Elizabeth II DG Regina, which translates to Elizabeth II, by the grace of God, Queen. This obverse design would be replaced in 2003 by a new effigy created by Susanna Blunt, making the 2001 issue one of the last few years to feature de Pèterie-Hunt's version of the Queen's portrait. The reverse of the coin features the iconic maple leaf twig design, which had graced the Canadian penny since 1937, created by sculptor and artist G. E. Kruger Gray. It shows two maple leaves on a single twig, symbolizing Canada's identity and natural heritage. The denomination 1 cent appears boldly above the maple twig, and the country name Canada is inscribed below. Beneath the twig is the date 2001, with the tiny initials KG for Kruger Gray visible to the right of the twig base. The design is crisp and relatively unchanged from previous decades, creating a sense of continuity and national pride. The year 2001 marked a period when the Royal Canadian Mint was producing billions of pennies annually. Indeed, over 1 billion 1 cent coins were struck for circulation in 2001, including those minted at the RCM's Winnipeg facility. This high mintage, combined with the penny's low face value, means that the 2001 Canadian penny is generally considered common in numismatic circles. However, it still holds interest for collectors who value transitional coins, metallic composition changes, and coins that represent the final decades of Canada's smallest denomination. There are no widely known errors or varieties for the 2001 1 cent issue, although collectors occasionally search for minor die breaks or striking anomalies that can add value or interest. Although the coin is often encountered in circulated condition with light wear, uncirculated examples are abundant due to high mintage and hoarding. Mint state, MS, grades ranging from MS 60 to MS 66 are common, though top grades like MS 67 or higher may carry a small premium due to their comparative scarcity. Some proof-like PL or specimen versions were also produced for sets and collectors, bearing brilliant, mirror-like surfaces and sharper details. These were struck with higher care and typically distributed through collector channels, including annual proof and specimen sets. The 2001 penny is also notable for existing within the context of a broader national conversation about the usefulness of the 1 cent coin. Though Canada wouldn't officially discontinue the penny until 2012, debate over the cost of production versus its face value was already ongoing. It cost more than 1 cent to produce each penny at the time, making the denomination a net loss for the government. The zinc core composition introduced in 2000 was partly an attempt to cut costs, but this couldn't offset the inefficiencies in circulation and banking. Therefore, the 2001 issue stands as part of the last decade of regular penny production before the coin was ultimately retired from circulation. From a cultural perspective, the Canadian penny, especially in its familiar maple leaf form, remains a symbol of everyday life in 20th century Canada. It appeared in charity jars, vending machines, and was used for classroom math exercises or childhood savings jars. Despite its low monetary value, the penny held a place of quiet respect in Canadian hearts. The 2001 issue, like many of its predecessors, evokes nostalgia and national identity in a small copper-colored disc. In summary, the 2001 Canadian 1 cent coin featuring Queen Elizabeth II represents the waning years of a coin that had been a part of Canada's national identity for more than 130 years. It showcases a legacy design on both the obverse and reverse, the mature diademed portrait of Queen Elizabeth II by Dora de Pèterie-Hunt, and the timeless maple twig by Kruger Gray. Though common in circulation and of low monetary value, it remains a historically relevant piece of numismatic and cultural heritage, reflecting a transitional period in Canadian minting practices, economic policies, and royal portraiture. Its enduring presence in coin collections and among enthusiasts ensures that, even in a cashless and post-penny Canada, the humble 2001